Wilson with Cascade Media Group. And tonight, first of all, I want to say that we're using a new platform called Now. It's similar to Zoom, but Black Man owns it. And so, we're about cooperating with our community and especially our business communities, real good collaboration. But tonight, we're going to be talking about Roe versus Wade, that decision with one of our local young ladies, Miss Tiffany Stapleton. How are you doing this evening, Tiffany?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Doing just fine. Uh, First, right off the bat, let's get busy with as a black female, how do you feel about the decision that the Supreme Court came out with uh, earlier in the week?
Um, I think it's very unfair. I think that most of their judgment on why they wanted this overturned has nothing to do with the real situations that women really experience. Um, at the end of the day, it takes a woman 9 months out of a year to produce a child, whereas a man can produce as many as he wants in a 12-month period. So I feel like all the judgment and rule changing has more to do with people's personal preference versus what's really going on out here. Um, any of those people who want to overturn anything, I don't think have been in some of the situations that are documented when it comes to women and the choices that we have to make or get to make with our own bodies. And at the end of the day, black women don't like you to tell them what to do anyway. So um, I think it's very one sided, but what else? Everything else in this country is one sided. So this is just us dealing with another rule that some people that have nothing to do with real society can make. And
Black
we as
society.
black people, we gonna deal with it. We gonna work it out. We gonna deal with it. We just gotta stand up and speak our minds.
Have
And
you
it
had conversations with other individuals uh, of, of in your orbit about this situation?
I have, and surprisingly, despite what the media will tell you, there are far more medical situations that I've heard of with other women in my, you know, genre that had to do with abortion versus what those people will tell you has to do with abortion. I know several women who have had ectopic pregnancies
Mhm.
and the different scenarios that they went through and how they came to the decision that they came to. So I think there's a real terrible standard as to what the decisions that people make as far as abortions, when a lot of them be life or death situations and not more based on irresponsibility.
How,
And I
how,
think that's where this overturning is really coming from, because if you look up the numbers, in the last 20 years, abortions had declined. And a part of that was more about contraception and making awareness of that. And I'm 39 and a half. And I'll say in my generation, contraceptive and birth control was more of a conversation in my generation than it was in the generation before me. So education is the top of should be the top of all conversations. And I think that's what has a lot to do with this overturn of Roe versus Wade. The education of the actual abortions has a lot to do with that.
how do you feel about being forced to go through with a pregnancy and you can't really afford the child? Uh,
I totally don't agree with that. And I say that as a woman who electively got a tubal ligation after her third child. And that was my personal decision that I made for myself, uh, mainly because I was a young woman, a young black woman with children. I love all of my children, but I know that I didn't think it was fair to be able to continue to, bring children in this world and not be able to fully account for them or protect them or provide for them. I had to show some sort of responsibility. And so that was a personal decision that I made for myself, which is part of the reason why I think it's very messed up that others get to make that decision for you. Because had that been so, thank you, I might have had more children by now. And that would have been a blessing, but at the same time, trying to be more responsible, I think women should have the option and the decision. That should be up to them, not to up to some person that has absolutely nothing to do with my life and what I aspire to do with myself or my children.
Do you think that the current Supreme Court made this decision uh, from a political standpoint? Uh,
Absolutely, it's all political. It's all political because at the end of the day, none of those people who were gung ho for overturning this will want to tell their own personal stories about their own situations or their own daughter's personal situations and have those pan out, because I don't know not one woman that don't have a story related to reproduction. So I think this is very political. I think it's been rolling. It just finally was able to get some steam under the wheels, and it's definitely political
how do you
because
feel?
nobody's really thinking about the science of this.
How do you feel about Clarence Thomas
Hmm.
and uh, the controversy just before the decision was made with his wife?
Well, we ain't even gonna talk about Clarence Thomas because that's a whole other story from a long time ago. Because I remember that story when I was a child and a teenager. Exactly. I think his perspective is the same as it was 20 years ago when he was getting in trouble behind a woman. He
Anita,
has he has somebody else in his ear that is coaxing him to participate in whatever gain they're going to get from this overturning the road. He's a pawn. He's been a pawn for as long as we've known that name. So, we all know those pawns. It's okay.
what I
But
call them is Oreos.
exactly. I wasn't gonna say it, Mr.
No,
Nelson, but
no,
there you
listen.
go.
That's that's the importance. As I talk to you off camera about coming to your own network, because if you can't speak truth to power, that's what's going on in the major
That's
network.
what's wrong with everybody. You're right.
That's what we're talking about right now. That people don't want to call a spade a spade.
A spade. You're
And,
right.
and let me say this: we have a lot of Oreos walking around right here in Kansas City,
Oh
in
yeah,
our city, and they're supposed to be in leadership positions.
absolutely. And again, even with our local Oreos, it's all political. It's never about the principle. It's all political. I don't think nobody really looks at the real meat and potatoes of what they're trying to put over on people. And it's hard for a woman to accept a decision about a woman's body from a man. I don't care how you look at it, political or not. It's hard to accept that. And they could have said it from anybody else's perspective but his. They could have picked anybody else's but his.
So, uh, in closing, what would you have to say to your your state reps and the people that represent you in Washington D.C.?
Um, what I would say, I would challenge them to really look at the real reasons why they chose a political career, because I think that has a lot to do with what's going on in this country. Some are picking political careers for different reasons, and some are picking them to be a part of the change. And I think with all the things that's going on in the world, this is so far at the bottom of the list of topics that we should be working on right now. And if you really want to be about the change for your people and your communities, then you got to start with the important stuff. And I just do not understand how Roe versus Wade from 1973 popped up out of nowhere in 2022 in the middle of a partial pandemic and recession and everything else, with everything else going on in the world, what is more important to you? What will your kids say that you worked on and you helped with your community versus Roe versus Wade? That's just bananas to me. So I hope that some of our people, and I say that, Mr. Nelson, because I done been in this city my entire life. I've lived in the same neighborhood my entire life. I really do uh, listen and pay attention to the things that are going on around me, not just for myself, but for my kids' future. I have a daughter that's about to be 20. So this doesn't affect me as much, but it affects me in the way that it's going to affect my daughter in the future. And so that bothers me. No, I don't necessarily have to worry about reproduction anymore because of my own personal decision, but I got children. And today, Mr. Nelson, I had a conversation with two teenage boys about what Roe versus Wade was, and they had no idea what it was. And that was a very interesting conversation with my two sons. And so I think it's something that everybody should sit down and talk about, and then maybe people can start making better decisions because it's very one sided. And for my sons to hear from their black mother on what Roe versus Wade was and how important it was and why it's being overturned, their reactions were what I imagined to be for 14 and 15. But if you don't open their eyes when they're young and let them know the difference between right and wrong, whether it's woman or man, church or state, then we won't see no change. We won't see any change. So I hope that our local politicians that say they're down for the people really take a step back and make a good call on this one and back up out of this one, because this ain't the fight. Because what's going to happen is, Mr. Nelson, is women really run things. You know that, right?
I know
So
that ran me,
you get it. So
and
at the end of the day,
a little more than I had when I was younger. Because to be honest, a lot of times women see things that you don't see coming.
absolutely. And I think some of the women, and that was some of the things that I saw a couple of days ago, some of the women that were politicians that were getting on TV and basically backing all of this up. It was just really weird. Like as a woman, like I don't even think that I could speak out on this topic. Even if I didn't agree, if I did agree or didn't agree, I could not be the woman that stepped up to that mic and said, "Thank you for helping us." What did she say? What did that lady say? Retain the white life or something crazy she said with Donald Trump with his little crazy smiling self in the background. Like as a woman, if once we all stick together, this ain't going this is not gonna go well. Because we women don't like men to make decisions for our bodies. We'll go for anything else y'all talking about, Mr. Nelson, but that's one that y'all gotta let go. So once all us women link up together and get on the same page, it's over.
It's hell to pay.
It's gonna be held to pay. It really is. And then I say that from a woman that I personally don't feel like I have a lot of stake in the game because again, like I said, I made the personal decision myself to get a two ligation because I wanted to focus on the three kids that I did have and was able to take care of. And I did that as a benefit to them. Like, why would I bring a lot of children in the world and I could not provide for them or give them good lives or, be enough for them? And the way this world is today is not the same as it was in 1973. So we can't make decisions based off of what was going on in 1973. Gas was what, 49 cents in 1973? We at 465 right now. If you don't want to have a decision in your life, then you should be able to make that decision and say no. And wherever the circumstances may be. There's children that have been victims of abuse and rape that will now have to make a life decision that they really don't have any control over. So, like I said, once women we link up and we all get on the same page, this is gonna be over with.
All
But
right.
we gotta come together.
Uh, well, I think that you said a whole lot tonight that reflect uh, quite a few feelings from black women in our community. And then you spoke, as far as I was concerned, on the behalf of all women. uh, in your conversation. Uh, I steal Jim Watts' line. I'm taking the damn line. Uh, it was a plum pleasing pleasure having you on the show tonight. That's Jim's line. I
A
steal it.
plum pleasing pleasure. Now, see, I gotta use that this week.
Don't steal it from me. I
I
stole
gotta use that this week. Thank you for that.
it. All right. And my closing, as always, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Absolutely.
This program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.